Okay, today I want to talk about the concept of a pivot. And it's something that's the phrase I hear in the business world a lot, but it basically means to like shift directions. And so in business, a pivot can be big or small, but I want to focus mainly on the smaller pivots that lead to big changes. And so, for example, like in a business, they may need to pivot. You're probably seeing a lot of businesses pivot. If you're paying attention, you should be, due to all the shit that's going on right now. So a lot of people, say restaurants, for example, are pivoting to allow these like outside seating and all this kind of shit in order to keep their businesses rolling. And so you can apply these pivots to any aspect of your life. So I want to talk a little bit about pivots in your graffiti and sort of like your style or the kind of writer you want to be. But I want to try to articulate the concept the way that I see it, and hopefully I can do it in a way that makes sense over audio. So just imagine you're facing forward, and if you keep walking off into the horizon, that's basically like a metaphor for you just kind of doing the same shit, living the same way, not making any adjustments, and you sort of stay in the same place the whole time. So that can be applied to your style. It could be applied to your health, your fitness, and all that kind of stuff. So imagine just walking forward and just keep doing the same thing, eating the same foods, drawing the same shit, using the same tools, never really veering off of that path at all. And then imagine going back to the starting point and just shifting a tiny bit. Like we're talking like 1 degree. So if you walk like 10 steps forward, you're not going to be that far off the path. But if you walk like 10 miles forward, you're going to be really far off that path. So the reason why I'm trying to articulate it this way is because we're seeing so much. I think we've always been like this. It's like the instant gratification. Like, when you order food at a restaurant, that impatient feeling, you're like, I just want my food right now. Or like you order some shit off Amazon and it's like, it can't get there fast enough. And if you look at sort of the direction that graffiti culture has gone in terms of the usage of social media. And as an older writer, I remember the pre-internet days where you would do some shit out on the streets and then you wouldn't get your feedback for a while. People would have to come across it and you'd have to run into them at the yard and go, oh, hey, I seen you up on this. And then you get that sort of, that feedback that a lot of us crave. But now you have social media. So like, you do something and then you could put it on social media as soon as you finish and you start getting that feedback. And so I think this whole idea of like instant gratification is getting more and more amplified. And we've always seen it in like the weight loss industry. Like, but there's people making so much money off of our sort of human desire for this instant or like fast feedback, fast results. So they're selling you like 30 pounds in X amount of time and fast track your weight loss and all this kind of shit. But it's like, if you go back to that idea of the pivot, if you shift too far off in one direction, you're getting really far out of your comfort zone. So it's going to be harder to maintain that. But if you just shift a little bit and you start heading down that path in another direction, it's a little easier to do in the beginning and you just stay the course. Imagine 10 miles down the path, or you can put that in years, like 10 months or whatever you want to call it, how much further away you are from where you were going to end up. So if you make that slight pivot, you may see the results slower, but they're going to be easier. It's going to be easier to head down that path than to try to do like a complete 180 shift or a 45 degree shift or whatever. So let's talk about, a lot of us as writers, we get sort of stuck in these ruts. And I know it happens to me all the time. And I'm kind of in one right now where, when I go to draw, what comes out is a lot of the same stuff that I've been doing, so at this point in my graph career, if I want to change, I'm going to need to do some kind of pivot. And those pivots have happened. And I sort of end up doing that little shift and learning some stuff. And then I sort of stay in that channel for too long. So in order to really make it work, like you have to just continuously learn as you're going down that path that you shifted to. So imagine, another easy one is to talk about is fitness. So let's say you're like me, like I like being in good shape, but I fucking don't like working out. I have no problem eating healthy, but as far as like going to the gym or working out at home, which is what I do most of the time, I don't enjoy that. I'm not one of those people that get all fired up about going to the gym. So what helped me was just a small pivot, and it was something I learned from a book called Tiny Habits. The book was based on like starting with these small, easily digestible habits to shift your perspective just enough to where it's not difficult to do, but it's also difficult to talk yourself out of. So let's say you want to get in shape and you say, okay, I'm going to commit to working out for an hour a day. And you're not even really used to doing that kind of shit. It's going to be so fucking hard to convince yourself to do that every day. But if you do a tiny shift and you say, okay, here's an example of what I did. I was off track. I hadn't worked out for a little while. And so I read this book and I'm like, okay, they talk about tying a tiny habit to something you do anyway. So it's like a trigger. So for me, every morning I drink coffee. Every single morning, I never miss coffee. Like, it's kind of like the first thing I do when I get up is say what's up to all my dogs, pet them and all that shit. And then I'll put on a cup of coffee. And so my pivot was, I'm going to do 10 push-ups after every cup of coffee I drink. So if I drink like 2-3 cups of coffee in the morning, that's 30 push-ups. So for anybody that's in relatively okay shape, that's not hard to do. And let's just say, you're not in good enough shape to do 10 push-ups. You just do one, whatever it is, a tiny habit. The thing that happens, and what happened to me, is those 10 push-ups were so easy that as I started becoming more, as it became more of a habit, I was like, all right, well, 10 push-ups is easy. Why don't I do 15 push-ups? And then I said, well, 15 push-ups, that's easy. So after everything I drink in the morning, so if I have 3 cups of coffee and a hot lemon water and a fucking green juice or whatever, some of the different things that I like to have in the morning, I have to do 15 push-ups. And now all of a sudden, like, my push-up count is getting higher and higher and higher, to where now you fast forward to where those weren't quite enough. And then I was getting more into my routine, and now I'm working out a fucking shitload and I'm in way better shape. And it was all like that pivot that sort of like got me in the mode of doing that every day and forming it as a habit. And then, so if you go back to that line again, let's say you do the pivot and you just keep going straight, you're still heading in the same direction, but it's just a slight pivot off of what your original path was. But let's say you learn as you're on that pivot, you keep learning and you keep improving. So that line starts to turn into a curve. So now, not only are you pivoting away from where you were going to be, which was in the same place you were, now you're curving. So the line is even greater, and let's just say you're curving towards improvement or whatever it is that you're going for. You start getting there faster and faster. It's like an exponential path now, because you're learning, you're adapting, and you're continuing to add more and more to the pivot. So I really hope that makes sense. It's like so clear in my mind, but as I'm talking, I don't know. Hopefully it makes sense. So let's talk about, let's say, you're in the position where I am in graph, where I got all the kinds of other shit going on, and, developing my styles and kind of evolving as a graffiti writer stylistically is not really a priority for me. I'm really more enjoying the, doing this podcast, running the graph shop, doing different things that give back to the culture. But at the same time, I do enjoy doing graffiti. And so when I go to draw, or when I get invited to paint, and it's kind of like shit that I've done before, like, it's not as satisfying. So what I think I want to do is do exactly what I'm talking about with what I did for my fitness. So if I just do a shift, a pivot, and also incorporate this tiny habit thing, I believe that like I can sort of trigger that new style or whatever it is that's going to get me fired up again. So what I'm thinking to do is just create a tiny habit. Like I have a morning ritual that I do. It kind of changes and evolves, but like right now, what I do is I'll put on that first cup of coffee, and then I'll meditate for 10 minutes, and then I'll visualize for 10 minutes, and then I read at least 10 pages of a book, educational book. And I can't touch my phone or look at the internet or look at anything until I've done those things. And then between the reading and fucking around on the internet or checking my email or whatever, and then I'll do my workout. And then that's my start of the day. So what I think I need to add now, if I really do want to commit to trying to like pivot and try to, come up with some new shit for my graffiti, I haven't committed to this, so we'll see. But what I'm thinking is I'll draw for 5 minutes every morning. That'll just be a commitment. So what can you do in 5 minutes? Like probably not a whole lot. Just kind of fucking get in there. But what I'm hoping is going to happen is if I do that and get in the groove, I mean, it's kind of hard to get in the groove in 5 minutes, but if I get into the habit of doing that every day, at some point I'm going to reach a place where I'm like, oh, I started getting somewhere with that. So I'm going to extend this to 10 minutes or 15 minutes, or I'm going to draw a little further. I'll just make it so that I only have to draw for 5 minutes. Anything after that is a bonus. But over time, if all the science is right about how like you form these neural pathways and all this shit, I wish I understood more about it, but you actually build, your brain physically changes when you do shit like that. When you start, especially doing creative shit, your brain changes. You're getting better. Your brain is getting stronger. So I want to start doing that. I'm going to start tomorrow and see what happens. Like even if you do draw the same shit and you're not really making any headway with that, as long as you don't get frustrated and say, fuck it, I'm not going to do it anymore, you're still kind of pushing that, or what the fuck is the word I'm trying to come up? You're still developing a habit, So just by making yourself do that, you're eventually going to have this, like, what do you call it? What is the cliche? Like aha moment or whatever, where you do a line in some way that isn't the same. And all of a sudden you start to learn, oh shit, that's that shading shit or whatever it is. And it's happened to me in drawings before where like all of a sudden this little technique just pops out, and you don't even know where it came from. And you're like, fuck, I want to focus on that. So you start keeping on that track. And so I think the key thing is getting that habit started of working every day and then building on it. So there's other stuff that younger writers can apply to, when you think about, like most of us started writing, you just pick up a marker and you start fucking around on bathrooms and signs and all this kind of shit. And then you eventually have to do some kind of pivot to start learning how to paint or, start heading in that direction that you want to go. So, I think what I was trying to get at with this is just kind of maybe put it in your head to do some of these things intentionally, because I think we all do this anyway. It's kind of a natural thing to do, but I think most of us don't do it with intent. When you do shift in your direction, a lot of it just sort of happens on its own. But like, if you really say, okay, I want to shift in this direction and be conscious of it and with your intent, I think you can get better results. I mean, I've seen better results in a lot of aspects of my life, and some of the stuff that I've discussed on the podcast when Cub was here. He and we both really have grown as people, and we're quite a bit different than we used to be. So, for me, there was a time in my life where I was mad all the time. It was so easy to get pissed off. Like it was just so weird. Like, and I think back to that version of myself, and it's like, I just don't even recognize that person. It's like, it's kind of embarrassing a little bit, but at the same time, my mindset is kind of more on this, like, without those things, I wouldn't have turned into who I am. So like, I don't really stay in that embarrassed kind of, frame of mind for very long, because I really do believe that, everything leads you to where you are. So whether or not you learn from the things, that's kind of on you. But for me, all of that shit, I learned so much from being mad all the time. And then I came to this realization that like I was pushing a lot of things that I wanted away, a lot of people that I wanted in my life away. Or at least I think I was. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I wasn't, but that was my perception, that it was just sort of like I wasn't the person that I wanted to be. So I didn't know about this concept at the time, but I did like some kind of pivot where I started researching, and I was like, how do you not get mad all the time? Like, I don't remember what I was searching for, but I don't even remember how this happened. I just remember doing this search, and then meditation came up in my search somewhere. So I was like, I've never tried that before. And I downloaded some MP3s, and I still remember what they sounded like, or what they were teaching me. And basically through meditation, I started to learn that you didn't have to be the way you are. I mean, I know some people probably have like major shit going on that maybe I didn't have. I don't know. I don't know enough about this stuff I'm not saying this is fact. I'm just saying this is how I did it and how it affected me. So when I learned how to meditate, I learned that I didn't have to be mad. I didn't have to be reactive. I didn't have to be defensive. It was like you have to train yourself to not do that. And I'm still like, I still get mad. I mean, I think everybody does. And that's not really the goal, to never get mad again. But like, I didn't want to get pissed multiple times a day, every single day. That was unreasonable to me. And it's unreasonable to me now. Like, I certainly don't want that. And I don't like how that feels. I do believe that our emotions were put in our wiring for some reason. Like, back in the time when we were living out there in the fucking wilderness or whatever the fuck, you had to have some kind of anxiety so you don't get eaten by fucking other animals and shit like that. I don't know what anger is for, but I'm assuming it's there for a reason. So I'm not trying to suppress it entirely. I'm getting a little far down on this anger path. It's not really what I was trying to talk about, but the whole thing was like the pivot was just like, with intent, I decided that I wanted to change this about myself. So rather than saying like, okay, fuck this, I'm never getting angry again, and I trying to go down that really difficult path, I did a small change and tried to start learning about shit and learn how to meditate. And from there, I kind of learned how to control my thoughts a little bit and started learning how powerful that was. And, there's like little things that, how like when you have a song stuck in your head and it feels like you can't turn that song off. Like for me, once I learned how to meditate, I learned that you can turn the song off. Like for the longest time, I just thought like, oh shit, now I have to listen to whatever that Rickroll song is or whatever the fuck is in your head. I thought, okay, this is my life until that fucking song leaves. But, through meditation and through that little shift, I don't want to use the word pivot over and over again, but through that little shift, it got me there. And then that exponential shit started happening. And this has been a long time. I don't remember how long ago that was. I think it was like 15 years or something. So, but I have to tell you that that exponential curve happened, and it's continuing to happen. Like I keep learning. I keep trying to find new ways and understand more things about the stuff that I'm trying to shift towards or shift away from. So, kind of running out of shit to talk about, but I hope that it makes sense. And, it really has had a big effect on me, and just kind of don't try to go for that instant I don't like giving advice, but for me, it was about not trying to go for that huge shift and going in that little shift and making sure you can stay on the path. So the thing in that Tiny Habits book that I think a good takeaway for people that are interested in trying this, I would say read the book, first of all. I mean, because that fucking guy is going to be way better at telling you about this shit than me. But one thing that was cool, and actually Cub kind of briefly touched on this in the clip that I think I posted on the last episode. He was saying like, put your supplies in front of you, or whatever that shit is that you're trying to do. In the book, they say to make it easy for yourself to do it. So if you're going to draw every day, if you want to like improve your graph or whatever, before you go to bed, put your sketchbook out and whatever tools you want to use, so that as soon as you get to that point where you have to do that 5 minutes of drawing or 10 minutes, whatever it is that you want to do, that shit's already there. You don't have any excuse like, oh man, my book is all in the closet and my pens are in the car and all this kind of shit. So in the book they say to make it easy for yourself to do it. So I think that's going to do it. I don't know where else to go from here with it. I'm sure I'll think of some shit 10 minutes after I stop recording, but that's going to be the episode. We don't do any kind of ads or interrupt the show. I mean, I know these shows have been a little short since Cub's passing. I'm trying to find my footing and figure out what direction we want to take. But the point I'm going to make is that we're trying to head in this direction, and we've always tried to head in this direction where we're not interrupting the show with like sponsorships and all that kind of stuff. And we do ask that you share it. If the content is doing something for you, whether it's you're learning something or whatever it is, if it's doing something for you, it'd be really appreciated if you'd help us spread the word. And I think that's going to be it. I'm going to cut in something from Cub, and I appreciate you all very much for supporting the podcast, and appreciate all the messages and all the support. It's really helping keep this thing moving forward. And that's it. All right. Thank you. Later.
I hear you talking about mindset is what I keep hearing, because that's what this is. What a perfect example of what we were just talking about, because it's easy to feel confident and empowered and don't worry, brother, I got you. And life is beautiful and everything's going to work out when things are going your way. When the people around you are healthy, when business is going well, when your sweetheart loves you, when all these things are going on, it's easy to be like, all right, yeah, it's a good day. Things are rocking right now. It's good. But the real test comes in when shit hits the fan, when someone, whatever it is, we all know what these scenarios could be. But when shit gets dark and hits the fan is when you really see who's who, you see what's what, and who's really going to ride beside you no matter what.
All right. Good.
Appreciate each and every one of you guys who are supporting the cause and continue to spread the love. And yeah, stay up.